using the latches on the side. Inside the case you should have your M74 stinger. Things that you need to check for to ensure that you have is the M74 stinger itself, a yellow weapons key, and your simulated dummy coolant cartridge. Okay. To place this device into operation, first thing you're going to do is a physical check. First thing and most importantly is check your Atlas device. Make sure your Atlas cover opens. Make sure with the cover open, the arming pin will not stay out, protrude. Take your finger, put it inside the Atlas device, and make sure the firing pin is not protruding from outside the hole in the back of the Atlas device. Okay, close up your Atlas. Check your black shield, make sure that it's secure. Check your shoulder strap, which is adjustable. Next thing you're going to do is check your simulated IFF antenna, which is located to the side of the stinger. It's just a piece of plastic, but technically it's supposed to simulate the real IFF antenna on a real stinger. You have to depress it in, it'll slide out, and then release. You have to make sure that it fully folds out, and this simulates deploying the real IFF antenna on a real stinger. To put it back in, you can go ahead and fold it in and slide it back into position. Next thing you're going to check is your stinger sight. You have to make sure that this clips out and stays clipped. If this is loose and a gunner is actually using it, it can fall and possibly hurt a soldier by hitting his fingers or something of that nature. So you need to make sure that this is fully folded out. Check and make sure you have your yellow key receptacle. Check and make sure that you have your bone vibrator, which is located right here on the side. Okay. Next thing you're going to check is your sight. You're going to look through your sight at what they call the bat wing to ensure that you've got clear vision on the bat wing. And your aiming dots, which are at the bottom two circles of the bat wing. Next thing you do is check the front of the laser. Make sure that your two laser ports are clear and that your scope is clear and not damaged. This device has two lasers, not one. Next thing you do is check your rubber grommet on your uncaging switch. You're going to check and ensure that your trigger functions correctly. Your safety in your trigger. You're going to check and make sure that your power on thumb leveler depresses. Make sure that that's good to go. And you're going to make sure that your dummy coolant cartridge fully screws in and seats into the bottom of the stinger. Okay? Once you've done all those procedures, what you're going to do is you're going to, and I've already put a 9-volt battery in here, you're going to go ahead and put a 9-volt battery into the stinger. It is positive and negative sensitive, so you have to make sure that your positive and negative is lined up correctly. Put your battery in and screw down the cover. Once you screw down the cover, you should be able to press this button, which is right next to the yellow key receptacle, and you will see 0 rounds. That means it has power, but it is not loaded. In order to load, and the OC should have this, you have to have a green arming or weapons key. And what you're going to do, and if you look on the side of most of the stingers, it will have a sticker that tells you what position is what. So basically 4, 2 is wet fire, 1 and 3 is dry fire. So in the case of this stinger, I'm going to go ahead and key it up for dry fire. In other words, Atlas device not needed. So I'm going to take my orange key, because right now it's on Atlas fire. I'm going to put it into the 4 position. and go down to the 3 position. Pull my key out, depress, and you should have 6 rounds loaded. It will not fire right now until you put the yellow key back into the receptacle. For dry fire, it will go to the 1 position and go counterclockwise up. At that point, this weapon is ready to fire in dry fire mode. In order to fire the weapon system, the gunner has to place it on their shoulder, drop their coolant cartridge, wait a couple seconds, put their dummy coolant cartridge back in. They're going to go ahead and depress their thumb. You will hear 3 tones. The first tone is the power up tone. The second tone is the ready tone. And then when you depress the uncaged to fire, you will get a 3rd tone, meaning the missile is uncaged. So, first tone, power up. Second tone is ready. When you're ready to fire, you're going to uncage the missile and you will hear a 3rd tone, and then you fire. When you fire, there's an LED in the back here that will stay on for 6 seconds. That means the laser is firing for a total of 6 seconds, and you have to track your target for 6 seconds to get maximum effect. Inside the sight bat wing in here, there are 2 sights. There are 2 dots at the lower left and lower right of the sight. That simulates the 2 lasers, left and right. Theory is, if you have a target moving left-right, you use the right hand. If you have one moving right-left, you use the left hand. That way you can stay on your target. If you get too far in front of your target, hopefully the second laser will pick them up. But you want to keep one of those 2 dots on your target while you are engaging that target. So that's dry fire. For wet fire, you'll need a Atlas cartridge. And what I have here is a test dummy Atlas cartridge, not the real thing that we use to test devices such as this. So what you're going to do, and if you depress now, you'll see that you have 5 rounds because we have fired 1 round of dry fire ammunition. Okay? So, to set it for wet fire, we're going to go ahead and take the yellow key out of the 1 position, take our green key, put it into the 3 position, and go all the way to the 4 position, which is wet fire. Pull it out, you'll have 6 rounds of wet fire ammunition. The yellow key will then be inserted into the 2 position and turn clockwise down to fire the weapon. And again, you have 6 rounds of wet fire at this time. The only difference between wet fire and dry fire is in the wet fire mode, you must have an M72 cartridge, or in this case, a dummy Atlas cartridge in the Atlas device. And this has to be armed, or else the weapon will not key up. So, here's the example. I've dropped my Atlas cartridge, put it in. I'm going to shoulder the device, and I'm going to try to power up. You will notice that it will not power up. Okay? So at this time, I'm going to have Sergeant go ahead and arm the device, pull up on the arming handle. Okay? And at this time, it should go ahead and activate. First tone, ready. Or correction, power on. Second tone, ready. Uncage. Third tone. And I'm going to fire, and you'll hear a click in the back. That click is the Atlas device being activated. If you had an actual M22 cartridge, you would get the M22 device signature, 1800 degrees Celsius, or correction, Fahrenheit, Make sure you check your backblast area before you fire any live M72. And if you look here, you fired 1 round of wet fire ammunition. The only other thing I will say is the last thing you do before you fire is pull this arming handle. The first thing you do if you are not going to fire the munition is push this arming handle in. If you do this, it will not inadvertently go off. If you have this device with an Atlas cartridge in it, armed, and you give it a sharp jolt, there is a possibility that this M22 cartridge will go off without ever touching the trigger. So, the last thing you do before you are ready to fire with an M22 cartridge is arm it. The first thing you do if you are not going to fire the device is disarm it. In other words, push your arming handle back in. And never transport any Atlas device in the back of a vehicle with an Atlas cartridge in it. If you're going to go ahead and transport the device, open up the breech door and remove the Atlas cartridge before you transport the device.